Oh, welcome everyone. We're going to cover vCenter Configuration Manager and some of the new theories coming around VMware. My name is George Gerchow, and here's my sidekick, Chris Farrow. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. The agenda, we're going to talk about cloud computing and the virtualization journey, probably the most overused word in the world. But we're going to talk about exactly how enterprise management fits into it, and especially from a security and compliance standpoint. Then we're going to talk about some of the key business drivers around Configuration Manager and the importance of configuration management in general. And we're going to do a high-level demo of the product itself, so vConfiguration Manager. And then we're going to go into a roadmap and start talking about competitive differentiators and open it up to Q&A. And when we do the Q&A, please get on the mic so we can record it and answer the questions and hear them clearly. Also, Lisa Gale handed out the survey. Those surveys are to win an iPad. So if you don't mind filling them out as we're doing a demonstration, but make sure you pay careful attention to me, that would be awesome. Okay, so start talking about IT management and how it's changing in the cloud era. Well, people right now are going from P to V and then starting to build out private clouds. The major pushback on this is security and compliance right now. Lines of business are coming back the minute you virtualize those applications and saying the virtual environment's what's causing my latency, it's what's ruining my applications out there. If I can have visibility and control into that, that's where we really start helping out. So we cover the physical environment too, which by the way is very new to VMware, but also giving that visibility and control into the virtual environment, which is absolutely key. And then as you start moving out into a hybrid environment and public cloud, we're really going to start taking those controls to a whole new level.
Right. One of the things you're going to see from VMware is you're going to see, kind of a focus across a new portfolio or a new line of business management tools, right? So you'll see some of the existing products we've had in the past, and you'll see some of them brought across from the core group, and you'll see a lot of new products brought in. So, for example, today the product we'll be talking about, the vCenter Configuration Manager product, is a new product that brought into VMware as of April. If you saw the announcement yesterday, the recent acquisition of Integrian is another one that's brought in there. But you'll see a constant focus across the management tools in here, and some of the core tenets we're going to be focusing on as we bring these tools into the marketplace and as we bring them out to you guys. There'll be a focus on zero-touch automation, really from the standpoint of we want to bring more tool sets in to solve problems for you, but we're not asking you to have to get more and more training, more and more people, more and more dedicated folks to learn more one-offs. We want to try to make this simpler. We want to start getting these tools to work with each other and really start bringing these things more into a workflow. And if you've seen in some of the other sessions with VCO, Cloud Director, you've seen some of how the service catalogs and some of the workflows are coming together and starting to include some of the newer tools. A continued focus on policy-driven assurance, and policies can apply outside of the security and compliance standpoint as well. So we can talk about, we want to make sure our boxes are locked down. We want to make sure we have policies around PHI and any kind of sensitive information. We want to make sure we meet IT controls. But we also want to have policies around the SLAs, and we want to make sure our performance and availability is considered in the context of security and compliance as well. And then you've heard time and time again, you heard at the keynote, if you were at Ramin's super session yesterday at 5 o'clock, talking about the management BU, there's a constant focus we're going to be having of just because we're working on bringing new solutions forward and helping you solve problems, making the environment performant and compliant and secure, we still are going to make a focus on making sure the environment is open, supporting our partners, making sure that the APIs and the SDKs are there, and making sure that there are places for your existing investments to tie into the virtual infrastructure and with the new tools that we're bringing out as well. So this isn't a rip and replace strategy we're bringing in here. We will make it so that the ecosystem everybody can get along in here, and you will have choices available for you out there.
Okay, so just looking back at traditional management and then how management's going to move forward in virtualizing cloud environments. And yes, I am standing up. I'm not walking on my knees. I'm 2'2", but you people in the back, if you want to see me, you can stand up. Okay, so traditional management, very static, slow bindings out there. Change management. Does anybody know why change management was created in the first place? I'll tell you, you guys friends? You know each other? You guys want to compete for $20? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. What's your name, sir? Jason and Brian, okay? So I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions over the presentation. Whoever comes up with the most answers, this is our judge right here. Okay, we'll get $20.
Answers or accurate answers?
Just accurate answers, because in your case, Jason, I heard that's an issue, okay? So change management. Either one of you two guys want to take a guess as to why it was created? Who goes first? First person gets rights to the $20 first for the right answer. okay? To maintain procedure, right? And to make sure we have privilege changes taking place out there. That's half a correct answer, so he gets the first point. The main reason was to absorb a higher rate of change, believe it or not, with minimal impact to the business. Is that what happened with change management? Absolutely not, right? It slowed everything down. So what VMware is currently doing is making change constant and automated. Great example of that. How many people here work with vSphere, vCenter today? Okay? If you want to make a change, you go into vCenter, you identify what you want to change, you go out of that, you go back into service desk, identify what you want to change there, wait for it to go through the whole CAB process, go back into vCenter, hopefully make those changes or whatever tool it may be, and then hope that you got all those items right. Does that sound correct? Okay? A lot of room for manual effort and error. What if I could go right into a product like vCenter and automate that change, open up that request for change directly from there, touching it one time, having it go through the process, and then execute on the time it's supposed to? Right? That is automating change, and that's what we need in private and public cloud type infrastructures. Next. Okay, so our focus really at VMware has always been on CapEx, and we've done a great job with that. But now the issue becomes around OpEx. Management of these systems, management of the physical world, moving out into the virtual world is extensive, right? Now I have to go through a lot of those processes to be able to manage those devices and people. Okay, put my hands on these systems, manual effort, manual error taking place out there. This is our major focus right here, is starting to reduce that OpEx cost over time. Next. So the key business drivers, PCI DSS, number one, compliance in general. So Chris over here is the Director for Center and Policy for Compliance for VMware. This spans across all the different product sets. It's going to start having deep content beyond vCenter Configuration Manager and into the other products. But for right now, when it comes to PCI, when it comes to SOX, when it comes to GLBA, HIPAA, ITEC, we are the content kings. When you see the demo that I do, there's going to be thousands of rules out of the box that you can apply against your environment, then have the ability to create those rules on the fly as well. Virtualization enablement. This is what I was talking about before. I want to virtualize this machine, but there's politics and business units fighting it, security's fighting it. If I can make sure it's secure and compliant and account for the changes, now there's no reason to fight it. And if I can remove the fact that the virtual infrastructure isn't causing the problem, now I can start virtualizing more applications out there and more OSs. Provisioning. This is actually very new to vCenter Configuration Manager. For those of you that didn't know this product, it was formerly ConfigureSoft. Now we do bare metal provisioning as well as virtual provisioning. So spinning up vSphere, spinning up ESX, deploying virtual machines, slimmed down OSs using a technology called Juice. When do you guys want to take a guess at what Juice is? J-E-O-S.
Bonus points if you can spell it too.
J-E-O-S? J-E-O-S. Just enough. There it is, 2 points. All right, just enough operating system. So now I've slimmed down the OS up to 95% to be able to support applications out there like Apache, like IIS. Closed loop change management. This is the key to everything. This is measuring actual change. Everybody in this room has a change management process, right? Your change management process is probably garbage. And I'll tell you why. Because it's only as good as the tickets that are put in. I can tell you right now, my good friend Jason Cowie back there, he makes changes all the time. Jason's a very smart guy. When he gets up to go out and get his 13th joke cola of the day, his 5th ding dong of the day, he gets what's called the hallway mugging. Everybody, Jason, can you do this? Jason, I can't reach that application. Do you really think he opens up a ticket for every last thing he does? Absolutely not. So now what we do is we take the actual changes that take place within the environment and compare those to the ones that went through the process to capture out-of-band change. And I'll demonstrate this in a little bit. Application dependency mapping, so understanding the host-to-host dependencies of an application, back-end database, all while going through the IT service management process. Next. Okay, so getting to vCenter Configuration Manager. Configuration management is so important as we change configurations out there. Now, I'll just give you right now, since I'm making fun of a lot of people here, and Brian and Jason are being good enough, my most embarrassing IT story ever. And because of this, at one time, Mr. Cowie over there was probably not going to give me a job if he would have heard about this. I was working for a very large defense contractor, and there was 8 of us managing 10,000 servers at the time. Lots of pressure. It was about my 4th day on the job. I got a brand new laptop. Okay, what does an IT guy do when another IT guy gives him a brand new laptop with an OS on it? Blows it out, right? Blows it away. So I went ahead and blew it away. Now, this is for the 2 guys, okay? So this is for points. What piece of software do you think I forgot to put on that laptop when I rebuilt it? 3 points, 3-0 right now. And a virus, I forgot. Okay, so in the meantime, I'm going to Colorado State to get my master's degree. I plug that thing into the lab, and at the time, right, this was the late 90s, there was a virus out there with a female's name. What was that female's name? Don't help them out yet. Late 90s, around 98. Bail them out, anybody. That's right. I can't even say it in this room right now, right? So all of a sudden I get back to my environment, plug in my box, 30,000 emails go through with pornographic material on it coming from me, okay? So as I'm packing up my box that day, the VP for the Western Hemisphere comes down and he's like, aren't you supposed to be protecting us against that? I go home, I have to admit to my family that I'm an absolute failure. I get a call from my boss that night and says, hey, look, kid, I tell you what, we believe in you. Everybody makes mistakes out there within the environment. You're still going to work here under this condition. From now on, henceforth, you are Melissa Boy. Okay? So a couple years later, our CTO and I are in New York, and we're doing this huge iStacker presentation, 400 people there. Right? I'm feeling good about myself when I'm done, and all of a sudden I hear, Melissa Boy, all the way from the back of the room, right? So it was someone formerly that I worked with. So it's just one of those stories and one of those things that will haunt you for your entire career. Now think about configuration management across server and desktop environments. So multi-platform covers both servers, desktops, AIX, HPUX, Solaris, Unix, virtual, physical. Change in configuration management absolutely being the key. If that would have happened and we would have had this product, we would have said, hey, you know what? This guy doesn't have antivirus on his box. Push it out, make sure it's running, make sure it has the latest DAT file on it as well too. Which leads me to remediation. Absolutely key. We have too many tools out there that just do reporting and can't go out there and fix the environment itself. Patch management being part of that, provisioning, which I mentioned, along with software distribution, and then Active Directory management. Okay, so let's go through the service outage timeline. Okay, and here comes a question from my two guys over here. It's 3-0, right? You got to step it up a bit, Brian. Sure. Point of failure takes place. What is, and in fact, Jason, you can't even answer this question. I'm going to go to you first. What is the best real-time monitoring tool in the world that tells you when there's point of failure? And you're next.
You're thinking.
Say it. Go ahead, say it. The end user. Unfortunately, right? We got all these tools out there, but it's always the end user that calls us up and says, I can't get to my email. I can't get to this different application out there. So that goes to the point of notification, right? That's about 5 to 10% of our time. Where we really struggle is right here in the analysis. What happened? What went wrong? How can we restore service? By leveraging our deep change logs in vCenter Configuration Manager, we can get down to what changed and the root cause, getting to that point of diagnosis, detection, and then finally recovery and remediation. Next. Okay, so here's the issue we see out there in almost every environment on the planet. I have standard builds, in fact, multiple standard builds across my servers, desktops, and applications. Guys, what happens the minute those things are deployed to a production environment and someone puts their hands on them? All right, another point for Brian. It's 3-2. They change, right? They drift away, right? Click. So it drifts away. It's ad hoc change that takes place. Domain policy hits those machines. It drifts away. So now what I think I had and what I actually have are two different things. Think about virtualization. This host looked this way yesterday with this amount of guests on it. All of a sudden, that completely changed today when people moved some stuff over, moved new guests on that box, and started making changes. Then we have the other problem, right, which is that next desired state. I have software pushes. PCI goes from 1.2 to 1.21 to 2.0, which is getting ready to come out. So now I have to get to that next desired state. Next. What we do is we put a technical controls, CMDB, and by the way, we were doing CMDB before it became cool, right, to capture those changes over time. We're not competing with like an Atrium or an HP Service Manager. We integrate into that, but we are the authoritative source for desktop and server configurations, which will go ahead and populate that information back in there. But what that allows us to do is point in time change. So we can go back and detect when something changed and then be able to remediate it. Okay, so this is yours, Cowboy. Go for it.
So one of the things that you see when we do the demo for the vCenter Configuration Manager product is configuration management starts at the baseline. We take that core snapshot of the assets out there, both the adjacent physical infrastructure plus the virtual infrastructure. But we're going to use that data to populate that CMDB, and we're going to use that data for all types of analysis. And compliance analysis and driving the remediation focus is actually a huge part of this product. So what we've done is we've actually built in a huge IT controls library into the product. We've worked on working on this library and template stuff probably since about 2004. We've incorporated everything in there from industry best practices. So you have things like ISO, COBIT. You have regulatory controls like
antivirus.
Operational things like antivirus, right? You have SOX, HIPAA High-Tech, GOBA. You have 853. We have things that you wish would go away, like DISA STIGs. If you guys do STIGs a lot, then you know what I'm talking about. New things like PCI DSS, NERC FERC, including more just general best practices like the CIS benchmarks or the vSphere hardening guides. So what we've done is we've built this content, mapped the possibilities of different IT control sets, put them in a boilerplate library available in the product, and now you have the ability to collect and maintain data from your infrastructure, and you can slice and dice and measure your environment against numerous different metrics without paying a penalty for going back and scanning the environment over and over and over and over again. You can sit there and say, what do we look like versus ISO? What do we look like versus NERC FERC? What do we look like versus HIPAA? Because the challenge for compliance in any environment, whether you've got a large-scale virtualization deployment, whether you're already putting your toe up into throwing some apps into the cloud, whether you've got 100% legacy IT, the big challenge is you don't face just one regulatory concern, right? So you might be publicly traded. You might be in pharmaceuticals, so you've got FDA 21 CFR Part 11. You've got HIPAA and high-tech. You take government money, you're doing research grants, so now you've got some STIG stuff creeping in here. You don't have the ability to basically put your HIPAA hat on Monday, your PCI hat on Tuesday, your ISO hat on Wednesday, and Lord forbid your CIO gets his new magazine in the mail on Thursday and reads about the latest new cool standard. Because on Friday, you're going to have a team meeting about what our plan is to implement the next cool regulatory control out there, right? So you have to have the way to basically build this together in a comprehensive plan and look at that as a kind of a whole slice across the environment and understand what are we doing and how can we put forward the best possible scenario that's going to not only meet our risk management concerns from the business, but take care of us from the security and compliance standpoint.
Okay, so just going through the architecture and just at a very high level, what we have is a centralized collector. So this is where the CMDB is housed. It's a back-end SQL database, Windows box, IIS writing on top of it, which allows us web access to the box, SQL reporting services, which is actionable, and you'll see that in a demo. And it goes out there, discovers the different systems in the environment, then licenses them, and then, yes, pushes out managed code or an agent to them. The reason why we say managed code is because it's very lightweight and remains dormant unless we go to collect data or we go to remediate off those machines. Now, speaking of the collections, this is very differentiating as well, too. We do an initial baseline of 80 to 100,000 data elements, and then after that, we just capture the deltas, kind of like a backup. And that's what allows for that point-in-time change as well as scalability. Now, on the virtual side, it's a little bit different. On the ESX host itself, we use a hybrid proxy, so it's all agentless, and we don't put any code on the hypervisor itself.
Now, one thing I'll tell you, just with the standard VMware disclaimer, everything you hear and see here today is guaranteed to definitely change. So there is if you're used to ConfigureSoft architecture and the things we've deployed out there in the past, you're going to see a lot of progressive changes happening. You'll see this application basically be moving to a vApp infrastructure. And if you have some questions about kind of how things work today and what we're doing and where we're going, we have a celebrity joining us today. So here in the back on the left-hand side, we have joined by Greg Burke. So the interesting thing about having Greg Burke in the room with George, you usually don't see them together because George is about to Greg's kneecaps.
I grew mushrooms on my head the last time I stood next to Greg Burke.
We usually use him as the stepping stool, but we definitely have some of the chief architects and R&D resources in the room. We'll be able to answer some good questions for you at the end of the presentation. So.
Yep, absolutely. So going to the product demo now. So it's just a web interface. As you guys can see, it's fully rebranded out there. First thing I'd like to point out is, well, separation of duties, right? So Chris is a traditional security guy, so he wants visibility into the environment, set policy and procedure, but I don't want him to be able to remediate, right? Because if he starts remediating, and then that's where the finger pointing starts occurring. So we have a nice little role for him right here, right? The ISO role. That means that full visibility, but can't touch anything. ESX admin, they're only going to see ESX boxes. I can set up to where the help desk can only unlock password accounts all day long. So the point of it is I can access different systems and take different actions against them based upon my role within the environment itself. By the way, guys, it's 3-2 right now, right? What does ISO stand for? That's one version of it, but when it comes to a role within IT, somebody bail him out. Oh, close enough. Information security officer. A good answer. All right? So information security officer. That's what Chris was. Okay, so now once I log in, this is assuming I went out there, discovered the environment, okay, licensed those machines, and started collecting data. First thing I get is a great high-level report that shows me all my different operating systems out there within the environment. So here's Windows, here's Unix, okay? Now I'm going to ask you two guys a tougher question. Why do you think the Unix and Windows information are separate? Do you guys know a Unix guy at all? Okay, how does he feel about Windows? Okay, there you go. All of a sudden, it's 5-2. They hate seeing Windows data, all right? So the Unix admins screamed when we first built the product, and like, we don't want to see that data anywhere near our stuff. But the great thing about it is that it's actionable, right? So here's all my different OSs, starting off with ESX, Mac OS, right? Because we cover that as well, too. And now I can do several things based off the reports. I can right-click, collect information, view history, or reboot those boxes if I want to. Okay? Or I can drill down into the data grid and start taking a deeper dive on data against these systems out there. The way I'm going to use the product at first is very, very ad hoc, like an administrator would. So I would do things like sort it out by OS name, okay? And then I could drag and drop the versions right behind it, and then start doing quality control. Why is it that I have different versions out there running within the environment itself? Multiple versions, like look at my Red Hat Enterprise Linux server here. Why am I on 5? Why am I on 5.2? Then I can start seeing who the responsible admin was, who the last person was to log in. Lots of critical information. Is it a VM guest? Is it not? What kind of hardware is it running on? Virtual, physical, so on and so forth. When was the last time I talked to it? Okay? Same thing on the Windows side, but let's focus on Unix for a bit. Now, one of the things that we like to do in the Windows side is change local admin passwords or domain passwords, right? And by the bunches. Chris, how often do environments go out there and change root passwords?
Somewhere next to nowhere.
Yeah.
Never.
And by the way, is that an audit standard?
That usually doesn't meet the audit standard, no.
Right. So now what I can do is I can highlight all of these root passwords right here, right-click, and then go ahead and change that password. Okay, or I can see what the password day age is on it. So that's just an example, but if you look at the left-hand side, you can see everything from device drivers, what my dynamic ports look like, what my software inventory looks like in that environment, tons of information on the Unix side in it, as well as the Windows side.
Right, just to give you the idea of the scope of the information, when George talked about, in the 80,000 data element range, we're not kidding. You have the ability to go down, look at every component on the box, file systems, registries, audit logs, users, groups, policies, even the ability to go down into files, into the file system and parse out the contents of the files. So if you want to see every Linux machine I have in the environment that starts with the letter A, whether it's virtual or physical, and I want to see this config file and the third line and the variable in that file, you have the ability to collect that and bring that into a standardized central repository and look at it in one common view. So we have the ability to really know what's on the wire, not what you think's on the wire, not what's in your purchase order or your magic spreadsheet, really what's on your wire, and then we can start helping you figure out what you're doing with it.
Absolutely. It's useful and actionable. So here's the bonus question for Brian, okay? So it's 5-2 now. One of the things that we always look for is that end user, right? The one that's out there causing issues, and half the time it's an admin out there. The one that we like to refer to all the time is PEPCAC, okay? Anybody here in the room familiar with PEPCAC? Raise your hand. Don't say what it is, right? Okay, so a few of you. Bonus question for 2 points. What does PEPCAC stand for? Don't know. Jason, do you know? Who wants to bail him out? What is it? There you go, right? So PEPCAC.
Yeah,
right? So now here we have is all of our admin passwords out here within the environment, all of our guest accounts, and we're looking for PEPCAC, right, to see if he got permissions. And this is the scenario of how it works out, okay? So my friend Dave Savage over there calls up Service Desk one day and says, hey, I can't access that app. What's going on? And David Kramer's working the service desk. He's a junior admin. He doesn't know what to do. So what does he do? Gives him full-on rights to the box and then never takes him off. So now what I can do is I can come in and say, who are all the different administrators? Drag and drop over here. Okay, and then here he is, right? There's PEPCAC sitting right in my DemoDB there. Now, what is it if PEPCAC does not belong in that group? What's the next natural action I would take? I'll open it up to both of you. Demote him, right? Ooh. Get rid of his account. 6-2. Brian, you need to pick it up, buddy. Okay, but Brian, I'm going to give you a bonus 2-point question coming up here. So here he is. I got him lined up. I'm going to edit properties. Next. There's his account. And by the way, I can do this on one machine or 1,000 machines all at once. Set his account up to disable. Virtual, physical. Next, run the action now or schedule it to take place during a change management approved window. All right, Brian, this is a tough one. If I disable his account, but let's say he built SQL services or backup running on that box, what's going to happen to those? They're not going to continue to run. I think that's worth the 2 points. You got the score now? Because I just forgot.
Yeah, it's like 6-4.
6-4. Okay, 6-4. He's right. So wouldn't I want to go in and see what services is he currently running in the environment using that account? So now I'm going down to service accounts, and here you go. So effective permissions across the environment, from an enterprise level, domain level, down to a local level, all the way down to the service. So now I can change that to local system account before I disable it, or to an enterprise admin account right over here. Now the other thing I can do is extend that down to share. So Chris, this starts getting into your arena, right? When it comes to PCI and HIPAA and SOX and a lot of regulatory compliance.
Absolutely.
So now here's PepCAC. Let's see what rights he has shares to out there. Okay? So multimedia and payroll across a couple different boxes out there. If he has rights to a multimedia server, do we really want that within IT? Okay? That never happens though, right? IT guys never build multimedia servers. Let's go see. All right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and scroll up here to software inventory and start seeing what kind of software is installed out there. Yeah, so by the way, top 10.
What kind of files do we find with a multimedia server, George?
That's actually a good question for the guys. If we found a multimedia server out there, okay, which by the way, I could right click and install this software, what type of files do you think that we would find out there in the environment?
It's your department's MP3 server.
Yeah, exactly, but he beat you to it.
There's never, no IT guys ever had a collection of MP3 servers.
Or AVIs within the environment, or Loftcrack, right? Nobody ever runs Loftcrack in their environment. I guarantee you, like 90% of the POCs we see, we find Loftcrack or keyloggers out there within the environment. But then, uninstall, was it an MSI install or not? By the way, here's iTunes, okay? Because we know that's what PepCAC's out there installing in his environment. So let's go ahead and see if Jason and Brian were right. So we're going over to file system now, known files. And let's go ahead and see if we can find some MP3s. And by the way, this is every single DLL, every single file within the entire environment itself and what boxes they're on. So I'm going to go ahead and just simplify the search using a filter here. And by the way, there you go. Look, PepCAC's got some awesome taste, right? Shakira Hips Don't Lie. What kind of guy is this? That's what he's jamming out to at work. I never heard of no IT guy listening to that. I can understand him watching the video, but listening to that, seriously? Let's see what kind of videos he watches. Oh, God, he's got the same taste in music that you do, Chris. Share, believe.
Classic music.
So that's what he's rocking out to today. But you guys get the picture. So now I can get down to those different file types within the environment itself. Now, again, this is all very, very ad hoc, the way an administrator would really use the tool to start doing troubleshooting. And by the way, change detection. That's something that we didn't get to, and that's where it all starts and ends. So change management. This is what I was talking about before. So two different kinds. First one is non-VCM initiated. We'll get to that in a second. The other one is the changes we do. And we can track that all the way down to the end user. But you know what? Every systems management tool on the planet better do that. The one that's really interesting is this non-VCM initiated. This means that any change that was made to any system out there, whether it was locally logged onto the box, whether it was through another tool, we're going to capture that actual change. And then we're going to compare it or reconcile it back to your service desk or change management process to make sure that it was an in-band or approved change. So now here's my demo DB out here, and I can come in and I can start seeing any changes that were made to the environment, right, by machine, or I can come up here and do it by date as well. Right, and you can see all the different dates. So here's where that point in time change really comes into play out there. Then I can start clicking on these guys and start saying, okay, like today, were there any changes made out there within the environment? If so, what were those changes? And then start taking action against them. So here's one that we have here. Okay, right click, view row cells. Let's see what this change was. Here's where someone was added to the administrator group. It happens to be ID 10T, which is PepCAC's cousin over here. All right, he was added to the administrators group, and now I have the capability to do a couple things. Roll back the change to its previous state, or set the reconciliation type. I'll go over here and say, right? All right. And I can set that right into the DB itself. So you guys can start getting the picture with change reconciliation, which is very key out there. But again, Chris, this is all very ad hoc, you know, the way an administrator typically uses the product first. Same thing with patching, okay? So if I could go down to the patch management side, you know, I'm going to start analyzing patches, assessing them across the environment, Windows, AIX, Unix, HP, UX, Mac. I know the question you guys have, what happens with Update Manager? Right now, Update Manager is currently doing the host itself. We're doing the rest of the environment, but Chris, what do you think are in the plans for the future?
Sure. So who in here is using Update Manager? Or at least has, you know, opened up the documentation once? Okay, so the current plans are with this product coming into VMware now, what we'll do is be reconciling with VUM. So you'll see VUM continue to maintain core infrastructure, vCenter, ESX. What you see is the VCM product here. It'll start actually transitioning, taking over the endpoint focus. So you can see the product actually has a lot of focus, even though we certainly can do the assessment remediation. We can directly look at the ESX servers themselves in vCenter. On the patching standpoint, we're going to take over responsibility for the guest standpoint. And if you see some of the lists that George has out there, you'll notice the breadth of platform and patching is actually a pretty considerable jump from where you are today on Update Manager. So all the Windows platforms, all the way up through Windows 7 64-bit and everything in between, Mac, Linux, Unix, all of those included in there. And this is full patching, assessment, and deployment. So unlike today where I think on the Red Hat side you can only do just the Red Hat assessment. So this gives you a lot of choices, but it gives you a solution that you can actually take a look at patch management for the infrastructure you're getting ready to cut over, as well as the stuff you have cut over already into the virtual data center.
And Chris, it's all dashboard to details, right? You know what I mean? So I can analyze a dashboard from a management point of view, do some trending, but then get right down to the details. Do you want to walk us through what this dashboard showing here?
Absolutely. So the weighted scorecard shows up in two places in the product. You'll see it in the patching piece, and you'll actually see it in the compliance reporting as well. And the weighted dashboard actually lets you get back more useful information, better than just pass, fail, yes or no. So what you have the ability to do in the product is you can actually assign your own severities to either compliance rules that we're going to assess against the environment or to patch bulletins. And you can say, for your organization, we've actually ranked this higher than, say, the vendor has ranked this. So, or in the compliance area, a good example is, say, CD auto run. In some organizations, CD auto run being disabled is a must. Some organizations are kind of, we don't care, it can be on the list, but that's okay. What you can do now is stack rank the checks, and then you can actually also rank your assets. So you can say, receptionist, workstation up front, not as critical. Mail server, bind server, critical Oracle box, those are all mission critical, and we'll make those more important. What happens is the results you get there in the upper left-hand corner, that basically tells you where you need to drive your remediation first. Your most critical assets with your biggest problems are sitting up there. Those ones you might actually schedule an emergency out-of-band change request, whereas things in the bottom right-hand side, you might wait till your regular refresh or your regular scheduled maintenance window.
Absolutely. And then I can go dashboard of details, right? So I can now drill down into what is it that I have to go out there and do as the admin. And then I can sort it out by the suggested patch going to the environment. Okay, and I can see some critical information like I must upgrade the OS service pack before deploying that patch. The patch has already been delivered, but the machine just needs to be rebooted, which I can do directly from here. So intelligent information instead of the push and pray type process that most patching tools have out there. And then ultimately, if I want to deploy that patch, all I got to do is expand, right-click, deploy across the environment. So that just gives you an idea of what we can do there as well, too. Now, back up into the console before I start getting into the automated piece of things as well, too. You can see all the dashboards that are built out. Now, virtual environments. Let's just talk about that for 1 second. So one of the things we do is we start building out the relationships not only from a VM host standpoint, but what are the guests riding on top of it? What does that infrastructure look like? What does the back-end storage look like? What do my physical and virtual NICs look like within the environment? How many snapshots do we have out there? You want to talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, if you have a policy that says we're not supposed to be maintaining, either X number of snapshots strictly from a capacity standpoint, or we don't want to have snapshots that are older than a certain time period, so no good having snapshots that are 6 months out of date and we know that doesn't have the latest security patches or hasn't been upgraded to the latest application in the environment out there. We have the ability to go out there and do the assessment, capture that, and bring it back. Now, the nice thing about the Configuration Manager product, this product is designed to span vCenters. It's already built that way from scratch, so you can look at the entire infrastructure, your physical legacy stuff in this data center, stuff in that data center, across multiple vCenters, but it will roll together in a single view here.
Absolutely, and so this is fully integrated into vCenter as well, too, as Chris was mentioning. And one of the things that I can do now, you see the VM logs here. Okay, if I'm in vCenter, I don't want to leave that interface, but right now, okay, and here's a question. Do either one of you two guys work in vCenter at all? Okay, great. So here's a bonus question. It's worth 2 points. Is that the separation we have right now?
Yeah, we're feeling sorry for him now.
Okay, if I want to view the logs on a host, and I'm in vCenter, what do I have to do currently today? Log into the service console using what kind of protocols? SSH, there you go, winner, 6 to 6 right now. SSH or PuTTY, that's kind of tedious, isn't it? So now what I can do is right-click, view the logs. Right-click, what changed? Right-click, what regulatory compliance is it under? Right-click, launch in context to a portal to be able to see the physical side of the environment. Really, really key to be able to do that, all from vCenter itself, okay? So here's where I manage those snapshots, here's where my logs are, and then finally, getting information and collecting data about vCenter and how it's configured across the infrastructure. How many vCenter servers do I have out there? What are the permissions going to those servers? And starting to consolidate that information and then applying content against that as well too, right? Enterprise applications, that's really where we start managing other enterprise type products out there, getting down into Oracle as well too. SQL Server, SA password blank, security type stuff, how many versions of the databases and software do I have? So as you can see, very comprehensive. But again, all ad hoc. Now, let's start getting down into compliance and what this really means. As I start expanding this, okay, you can see the first thing is exceptions. And I was just talking about this at lunch today. Exception, and I'll give you my own example of this. Anybody here ever managed a DMZ? Okay? DMZ is a tough place to manage because a lot of times you have application owners in that DMZ, right? So you have a security patch that comes out, you want to patch that server, but the application owner says the application doesn't support it. No, right? So what do? We take a little sticky note and go right on our laptop saying, remind me to get back to this guy in 2 weeks. Meantime, I get audited. Chris comes in, right, because that's the way he is. Audits my environment, and all of a sudden, I got dinged for out of compliance patching on that box. What we do now is report it as a compliance time-based exception that we can put right into the product to where an auditor can see that. That's very key. Now I can hold that guy accountable, and I can start measuring my SLAs with that vendor. So that's one piece of it. The other piece are the rules, okay? So take a look on the left-hand side here, how many different rule groups we have. And I'm going to start scrolling slowly, everything from Mac, antivirus, right? There's that Melissa sitting right here, right, that I needed, okay? And then you can see ISO 17799 at 27001, 27002, Center for Internet Security, right, existing out there. And this covers a lot of the virtual side, doesn't it, Chris?
Yeah, the product is actually certified under several benchmarks for CIS, including the ESX3 existing benchmark out there that unfortunately they don't have a vSphere guide out yet. So,
COBIT controls, right? This is for you auditors out there, okay? Configure. So we should talk about this for a second because this is when we have some malware or a threat that comes into the environment. What is it that we did based around something like configure?
Yeah, for several different outbreaks on just specific one-off malware attacks, because we have visibility into everything that's out there in the environment and because we know what's running and where the boxes are, we've been able to, on very specific cases, deliver a quick one-off, push it out to our customers real quick, and give them a tool that they can actually benchmark, identify who's got the affected pieces, who's already affected, who could be still to be affected, and then make a change to shut down things. So whether that's disabling registry keys, turning off services, changing file permissions, but being able to do that in a quick, targeted pinpoint fashion, and that's one of the things like the configure drop there was targeted at.
Okay, so NERC and FERC, right, SOX guidelines, all sitting out here. PCI DSS, and let's just stop right here. By the way, Microsoft best practices built into the tool as well too. And let's go ahead and expand that on PCI DSS for member servers. Now watch, you saw how many folders I went through. Watch what happens when I click on one folder to view the rule groups. On the right-hand side, where you're going to see populate are about 100 to 130 different rules just for this segment that I can apply to my environment. Deep technical controls. Earlier, the question about policies. They're already out of the box. Now, every environment's unique, but I can fix these and edit them to to change my environment and to apply to that environment while maintaining the integrity of the rule. So a couple things I want to show here. One, you can see all the different rules out here, minimum password length, antivirus, right? So going back to Melissa, and I can scroll all the way down here, and you can see there's 130 some odd rules. Okay, so 129. But one of the great things is I can see if anybody modifies these rules or changes these rules. Okay? So I'm trying to maintain the integrity of the original rule to be able to use it out there. I can clone it, I can copy it, I can move it, right? The other great thing is enforceable. So as you can see, these radio buttons over here, I can now enforce the changing of that rule all through a right click. That is power. A lot of other tools out there will show me that I'm out of compliance, but I want to be able to fix it. Okay? Now, a lot of companies, to be honest with you, they won't use the auto enforcement right away. They'll gather the information and then go ahead and use the tool to start remediating. But for things like antivirus and Melissa, definitely I want to go ahead and enforce that. But Chris, now we have to put those rules somewhere. Where do we want to put them?
They're going to get bundled up into kind of usable packages here. In this case here, the construct we have under templates. And you can actually define kind of your own group and collection of these, which are those pre-built rules or boilerplates you wanted to use. And you can add them, choose them, modify them, and then put them into a kind of a runtime form factor here under templates.
And while I'm doing that, I mean, we just passed by the HIPAA rules. Can you talk a little bit about high tech and PHI and what's happening in that market right now?
Who's in healthcare and doing HIPAA now high tech? Some fun people, right? So 20 years ago, in my first job out of college working for Kaiser Permanente, was before HIPAA. We always thought it was kind of funny when HIPAA came out because we were always concerned about PHI, right? I mean, we got it. Patient privacy was a big deal. It always has been a big deal for IT guys in healthcare. But HIPAA came out and it got people fired up for a little bit, but it really kind of turned into that toothless regulatory thing. Man, it really took 20 years for the first people to really get audited and fines to get levied before people started taking it seriously. And then came along high tech and kind of changed all that. And now all of a sudden, HIPAA is the new SOX, or probably tied up there with PCI. It is keeping a lot of organizations awake at night. Thankfully, unlike HIPAA, high tech is very prescriptive and actually very mean about what it says you're going to do and what the consequences are. A little pain helps motivate people, get things going, so it probably has some benefit out there. But what we found is working with healthcare organizations, for folks who've already been working on compliance and security best practices and putting together a comprehensive framework, high-tech controls actually were probably already covered in their strategy. They just have a new form of documentation and one more auditor to hand a copy of it to. But for folks who've been chasing compliance, who've been trying to do HIPAA on Monday and PCI on Tuesday, high-tech has become kind of the new fire to put out in their organization.
Absolutely. So here we go. We just ran a compliance template. These are the rules that you just saw and the results of them. Again, critical rules, right? That's that upper left-hand part of the corner over there. And then my vital assets out there. So I can see I have 274 infractions based upon about 2,000 evaluations going across these servers. Now, as I scroll down, here's the killer part of the CMDB. This 69%, I want to see this number get bigger over time. I want to show an auditor that 6 months ago, I was at 55, 3 months ago, I was at 60, now I'm at 69%, and I'm showing process improvement when it comes to compliance. But again, dashboarded details. I want to be able to drill down into this 274 right here and see what those rule infractions were, and then enforce them. Go out there and make that change en masse. Okay, so here's all the different rules out here. Okay, and as I scroll over, it's going to show me the rules that were broken in drag and drop bulk administration. I'm going to slowly put it up here in column grouping. It's going to build those out, and now I'm looking at the data where I had compliance and valuations, and of course I'm going to pick on antivirus, right? Melissa boy. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight all these guys, right-click, enforce, and make that change in mass across the infrastructure. Again, I can set that up for auto-enforcement. Now, a couple things, because we're starting to run into time, and I want to make sure I show off a couple things first. The idea of gold-certified machines, okay? Can one of you two guys describe what a gold-certified machine is? Nope. Neither one of you. This could be the winning question. It's 6-6. Anybody want to give it a shot? Anybody want to help them out? Gold certified machine is when I say this machine is my optimum build to support this line of business, right? What's wrong? And here's another question for you guys, right? Because I need to get a winner. What happens to that gold certified machine the minute that I certify it gold?
It changes.
Yes, it changes. Both of you answered at the same time. All right. So it changes, it drifts away. So what we've done is we've taken an extra step out there, and we have said, why don't we take a snapshot of that machine at a point in time? Now, I don't mean like a VM snapshot, right? This is virtual or physical. I'm not like taking a build and storing it somewhere. I'm taking a configuration setting snapshot and saying, at this point in time, this is the way this machine looks. That gives me the ability to compare it to itself and other machines over time. So here's where I took a snapshot of my demo DB over here, right? And I called it SCM VM World. And if I come up here and I go to compliance, okay, and I'm going to scroll back up here to templates because I want to build a template around this and still show you how easy it is to build templates. I'm going to click on templates and have the ability now to start doing machine comparison. Most environments have this idea of gold machine certification, but I guarantee you, as the two guys just demonstrated right there, they change. So I'm going to click on compare machines. And by the way, view history, again, I can see what's changed within the environment itself. I can't say that enough. And then now once it comes up, I have the ability to start taking these different rule sets and data types and comparing them out there.
And George, while you're typing here, let me point out, this is a good place to highlight. There's actually two types of compliance rules we can put out there for you. So there's a static and there's a dynamic. And so static is something you can predefine, and you can actually say parameter, equals specific value out there. So you can actually say, registry setting equals, 0, and it's always set that way. And you can pre-build that ahead of time. That's a lot of the content that we pre-build and distribute out to the customers. There's also the concept of dynamic rules, which we actually change based on the environments inside your particular environment. So it could be like
antivirus.
Antivirus is a good one. Like the DAT file that changes could be possibly daily, or maybe the approved list of local administrators. Right? Well, I don't know the name of your local administrator account, so I can't actually pre-build the check for you to tell you what that is. But you can actually set that up and account for that and leverage functionality like this from the gold standard standpoint.
Absolutely. And here in this case, right, I have my snapshot sitting right here. And now I'm going to compare it to itself, and then I can pick a range of 100 machines, 200 machines, whatever it may be, bring them on over here, and then get right down to the different data types that I want to start comparing. Now, think about this with clusters, especially. I want those clusters to be identical. Drivers, software, everything across those boxes, and create a template and start managing configuration drift on those boxes. Software provisioning. Here's where I can easily say, if it doesn't have these applications up to date, deploy that application on that box to make sure that stack is compliant out there within the environment. So being able to do that's very key. Now, we're going to wrap up the demo a bit, okay? But let's talk a bit about change control and making sure that we go through the process, all right? So when I first started with the company, and by the way, Mr. Jason Cowie back there, thanks again. All right, when I'm going ahead and blowing up this machines piece over here, I was working at a very critical organization in Washington, D.C., who I can't really mention who they were, but one of the guys there was an absolute data center ninja, one of the smartest people I've ever worked with on the planet, knew more about the tool than we did. But, right, IT guys, we're kind of pranksters, right? I mean, we're having some fun here today. So one of the things he did was he's like, hey, my buddy Mark is working on a member server right now. I'm going to use your tool to bounce his box while he's working on it in the middle of the day, okay? So he went over here and he clicked on reboot, okay? But instead of selecting this one arrow, he selected this arrow. Then he came back in here and he said, right? I'm not watching him, okay, because I'm over there, I'm like talking on the phone. I can't even remember what I was doing, but I found out shortly. 60-second delay on it, next, blasted it out there. Bells, whistles are going off. Everybody runs in and starts yelling at the short, bald guy because I'm the vendor sitting in the room. Everybody, right, except for the guy who was working on the member server. Came back in, gave him up, almost lost his job. It took away all of his administrative rights for a while, kind of put him in a paper-pushing type role for a bit. But I remember thinking back then, God, wouldn't it be great if we could put some technical controls around that and make sure we go through service desk? So, at VMware, we have a service desk. It's called Service Manager, but this also integrates into BMC's Remedy, HP Service Manager, and lots of the other service desks out there. So the idea of it is to make sure that we're good citizens amongst the process, okay? Catherine Howard, are you in the room? It's one of my service manager people. Everybody say hi, Catherine. Awesome. All right, so now here's what happens when I go to reboot these boxes. Right click, reboot, and it pops up and says, great, you want to bounce the box? Where's your request for change? I have to have an approved request for change that sits in service desk right now and hasn't been executed upon for this action before I can take it. Okay, that's step one, and that's pretty cool. The next piece I'm going to show you was light years ahead of its time when we developed it, but now everybody wants it. This is the piece I was talking about before when it came to change automation. By the way, emergency changes, I want to go out there and just execute them, I can. A very large military organization, let's put it that way. I almost gave that one up. Came up to us and said, look, what we want is we want our lazy admins to be able to just go ahead and execute the changes from your product. And by the way, I was the biggest one of those lazy admins. I hated opening up change tickets. I could not stand it. So I was like a lot like Mr. Cowie, and I would just go ahead and execute those changes whenever I wanted to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to simulate bouncing this box here, okay? All right, delay on there for 30 seconds. I'm going to go next, run action now, finish, and hopefully the demo gods are with me today. They were yesterday, so I hope it works out. I shouldn't even say that, all right? Now, Chris, what would be happening right now if I didn't have service desk integration turned on?
Would you be filling out a service desk ticket?
Yeah, well, it would completely blow up on me, right? I mean,
Yep.
you'd start seeing this VM rebooting right in front of us right now. Okay, but now instead what happens, and let me go up in here to Service Desk Console, and this is just a view into what's happening on the Service Desk side. It's pending. I got a ticket out here that's pending right now, queued up in, like I said, Service Manager, Remedy, whatever it may be, showing me what the action is, taking across what machines, created by who, so all this data populated into the ticket automatically, waiting for it to go through the change cycle. Really powerful, okay? So a couple things around that. One, you can notice down here there's no RFC associated yet because it hasn't started generating through the process. But now what I can start doing is coming up to a lot of these higher level type dashboards out here that start measuring the change management process through actual change. Imagine that. So now if I come up here to RFC summary, and again, I'm going to have to leverage a point in time change here, it's going to show me all the ones that have been denied, okay? So these are people who are opening up tickets that don't know what the impact's going to be, so they just deny it, so I can start training issue there. How many have been canceled? This is by trying to add an extra change. Pending approval, this is my favorite. The manager that takes forever to approve my ticket, so I'm going to go out there and just do it anyway if he doesn't hurry up and approve it. Okay, so now I can get that bottleneck. Now, the other side of this too is, well, how many in-band or out-of-band changes do I have within the environment? So when I click on this, this is where I'm comparing it back to Service Desk. In-band went through the process, out-of-band went out of the process. Okay, so I can start measuring that. So, with that being said, to wrap up the demo, what do we want to do with this change? Do we want to approve it or deny it? What do you guys think? Brian, what do you think? Deny. What do you think, Jason?
I want to see it bounce.
Me
There
too. Ryan, man, dude, great sport, but holy cow. I want to see it bounce too. Even though it puts me on the spot, I want to see that thing bounce, okay? So let's come in here now, and now I'm going to go through my approval status, okay? So I'm going to hit 171 here, and hopefully, again, the demo gods are with me. Jason could have just really put me on the spot because that would be really bad for me if it didn't bounce, okay? So 171, I'm going to click on approve. Damn, Brian, you got to quit being so negative. As you can see down here, no RFC associated, so let's go ahead and refresh this. Okay, now it's going through the approval process out there. You can see an RFC is associated, and hopefully, in a couple seconds here, minutes, trying to pull it out of there as quickly as I can, you should start seeing this VM start bouncing out there because it went through the process, and there it goes. Okay, so then now all the changes made through our product come through as in-band changes because they went through the process, and it really gives me an idea of out-of-band change out there within the environment. Okay? So let's step away from the demo just for a minute so we can start wrapping up. A couple of other things out there, key points. So roadmap, where is all this headed? How does it fill it into the bigger picture? Well, a lot of things on the plate. Bigger picture really is when it comes down things like cloud director out there within the environment itself. We want to make sure that as you have that self-service provisioning portal with auto delegation and multi-tenancy, that those machines are secure and compliant over their entire life cycle. Okay, making sure that we support more OSs, work very closely more into the virtual side of things as well too. Continue our service desk integration and process type improvement out there within the environment. Okay, and then continually start building out what data types we go out there and collect, how much more bare metal provisioning we do within the environments themselves as well too. Key differentiators or takeaways: compliance, kings. Compliance content, Mr. Farrell's group is awesome. They do a great job patching compliance across the stack, everything from OSs, applications moving forward across the board. Virtualization enablement. If you have those people telling you that the virtual environment's what's causing the problem, you need a root cause analysis tool like this to really help you get down to those details. Closed loop change management. You just saw a great example of that, measuring in-band versus out-of-band change. Juice provisioning, right? Slimming down that OS. It's something that no one's doing out there right now. Agentless discovery of what applications are currently running in my environment and populating that back up to CMDB. Very critical. And then finally, product integrations. We're all about that. These products have been integrated now for 2 or 3 years. They were former EMC products that VMware purchased to enable the virtualization side and to get compliance into the picture. We made sure we integrated those products way back when they were OEMs because we don't want our software to go somewhere and die, right? It's got to be part of the bigger picture.
So a couple things we're going to here. We're going to open it up for questions. One thing I want to point out, so the product we're showing here, this product is live and running. It's downstairs on the show floor. If you go to the management demo pod at VMware's booth, you can see the product being demoed. This product's are live in the hands-on labs. If you go over to Moscone West, hands-on labs, you can actually run through 3 different labs, configuration management, patching, compliance, and provisioning are all in part of the VCM labs over there. So the guys are even open tonight, even into the first hour of the party. So if you think you're skipping the first hour of the party and you want to sneak a lab in, remember those guys are there they've been there from 8 a.m. every day on, 8 to 6 today, and I think 8 to 4 tomorrow. So if you have a question, if you come up and take it to the mic, and we'll try to answer it for everybody here and get it onto the recording.
Hey, before I do that, though, guys, give a hand to both Brian and Jason, man. These guys did a good job, took a lot of punishment. And I'm going to pay them out. I'll do good. Good job, guys. Seriously. You guys earned it.
Okay, there you go. First
you
question.
You said that
Stan.
This is eventually going to replace VUM or be integrated with it?
They'll integrate with VUM. So VUM and this product actually will just start sharing duties. So VUM maintains its job over core infrastructure. We're taking over the endpoints.
So going forward, VUM will still be the main tool for updating your ESX servers?
Yes,
okay.
Directly for ESX and for vCenter, yep.
The second question is, say for instance, we're working with a government facility or government contracts, and we deal with DISA STIGs. Currently, the ESX 3.5 STIG is out there, dated, I think, 2008.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll be seeing a vSphere STIG in the next, I don't know how many months or years, but hopefully soon. When that comes out, how would that rule, if that works, how would the rules be applied or put in to the configuration manager?
Sure. So we currently have a full range of STIGs in there currently. So we have the 3.5 STIG, we have the Unix STIGs, we have the Windows STIGs, we have some of the database and maybe one of the web ones in there as well. So we're actually working with Charu and the team that does the hardening guides. There's two things we're actually working on regarding into the kind of the DoD and federal space. So one, we're working alongside the team. Part of my team is actually supporting VMware's efforts working with DISA to finish off the STIG. So we're involved with that. So we'll be involved in the process, and when we release it, it gets available for either manual download for those customers who don't have direct internet connectivity and have to do it offline. Also, the tool has a live update mechanism that we can publish that down there. The second thing we're doing that we didn't really bring up in here, but is pertains to that conversation, is this product, the VCM product, will be the first VMware product that's SCAP certified. So we're actually in the process of translating the vSphere hardening guide into SCAP format. That'll be published on the NIST site, and this product will be going up for certification in Q1.
Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering, do you have any plans on providing integration into other components such as Cisco switches and storage vendor arrays?
So, I mean, we looked at that. Obviously, coming from EMC, we did a lot of stuff with, I can't even remember the name of it anymore. Well, with Voyance, but not the other one, the ECC.
Yep.
On the EMC side. So we were able to gather a lot of that data, put controls around that going back into the storage type arena. But right now, I mean, to be honest with you, that's stuff that we can do through services. But on the roadmap side of the house, we're staying away from that arena. We're really moving towards that virtual infrastructure while still supporting people with their legacy physical type stuff.
The new product we announced, the acquisition yesterday with Integrian does actually have the ability to take data feeds in from tools that do network and tools that do storage, and so that can be rolled up into a view so that you can see how the environment from a legacy IT, virtualization standpoint, and supporting infrastructure underneath are all kind of working together. So you can roll that into kind of analytics up top, but from the assessment remediation standpoint, like George said, not currently, at least on the short-term roadmap. So thank you very much. If you guys have any more questions, we'll be here. And actually, we'll need to clear the room because we always have another session coming behind it. But be sure and turn in your surveys for the iPad drawing to Lisa in the back. But you can catch us probably out the back door. That way we don't clog things up in here. Thank you.